Today on REM Reward, we're joined by James Mollison, a British-born photographer based in Venice whose work has taken him around the globe, documenting how children live and sleep. While his broader portfolio expresses social and cultural themes, today we focus on his photo essay project named Where Children Sleep, where he pairs portraits of children with images of the rooms or places they sleep. In our conversation, we'll explore what these spaces tell us about inequality, culture, and children's well-being, and we'll dig into his observation about how a child's environment shapes emotional and mental health. Welcome to REM Reward, the podcast that explores the secrets of sleep and psychology. I'm your host, Ryan, and in each episode, we'll dive deep into the world of sleep and other topics such as mental well-being and personal growth. If you want to unlock your full potential and receive the rewards that come with understanding the power of sleep, you're in the right place. To discover more tips and insights on improving your sleep and overall well-being, visit our website and explore our other episodes at remreward.org. Started. Alrighty, so for my first question, what inspired you to create Where Children Sleep, and how did your perspective on childhood and sleep evolve throughout the project?
Well, the project came about after I was asked to come up with an idea for a children's charity.
Oh,
Um, it was for an exhibition, and it was actually for UNICEF. And my first thing that I would do would be to look at the pictures that they make. And I noticed that these tended to kind of fall into two categories. It tended to be a kid either in a kind of terrible situation, maybe after an earthquake or a flood or something.
mm,
Or it was a picture of a kid like this kind of a poor kid, but like with a huge smile on their face.
right.
I think that's really because that photography was normally used to kind of raise money. But I kind of had this feeling where I was thinking, I don't really know that much about the child. So then I kind of was thinking, oh, went back when I was little, like how would I have known more about me when I was little? And then I kind of just the bedroom popped into my mind. And I thought, oh, that was the place in the house um that was kind of my own domain. So I think when I had been young, I was born in Kenya. I grew up in England. If you'd kind of seen my bedroom from when I can remember, which is about 5 years, it would have been kind of had some kind of African kind of
Right.
carved animals and taught a few toys. And then that progressed into kind of, I was into army at one point. So I had lots of camouflage stuff. And then then it kind of went into Madonna and Duran Duran posters, and then kind of more like The Cure and then the Stone. So it
Yeah.
kind of reflected. So I thought it kind of led me to think, I thought, I wonder where these children sleep.
Hmm.
Um, so I had that idea, and then I didn't want to just do pictures of their bedroom because it was for UNICEF. I think that we have this Declaration of Human Rights, which says we're all born equal. And I think it's a great statement. It's a noble statement, but it's also untrue. I mean, in sense of there's kind of such different experiences. So that's really, I then decided to photograph the kids on a plain background. So they're
Mm.
treated equally, and then their bedroom talks about kind of where they're from. So that's how it started. And then when I pitched the idea, actually UNICEF didn't like it
Really?
because because I also thought that it was important to have kids from not just from the kind of poor, kind of in difficult situations. I felt
Right.
that it was important to have kids from America, Japan, England,
Right.
places, because I think there can be this thing whereas you sometimes you look at kids in those situations and it almost seems like another planet. So I thought, actually, let's make this about kind of show kids from everywhere. So that's how the project started.
Yeah, wow, that's a really amazing story and some really great points. Thank you for that. Um, yeah, so going on to that, at REM Reward here at this organization, we focus on how sleep affects different aspects of children, but one of them is children's mental health. So from what you observed, how did the children's environments impact their sleep and overall well-being from what you could tell?
Well, I suppose maybe slightly my own naivety. You know, when I was doing the project, I called it bedrooms
Mm,
because I think we kind of in the West, you take it for granted almost, don't you, that
yeah,
everybody has a bedroom.
for sure.
And as I began to do the project, I began to see that from literally millions of children around the world, that isn't the case. So kids might sleep in a space of convenience that could be kind of in the hallway, or quite often the whole family sleeps together.
Hmm.
So I think that idea of this kind of place, your own place in the house, is a kind of privilege that we kind of take for granted.
Right.
And I think that can be a very different experience for people all sleeping together in one room, which can kind of probably has some negatives, and it has, it has positives as well. There's more of a sense of kind of community, less isolation on the one hand, but
Hmm.
then obviously you've also kind of got the noise and what everything happening. And, often I think another thing would just be practicalities that people often are sleeping on, might even be sleeping on kind of mats. They don't even have mattresses. So I think that sleep must be um, interrupted more in some of those situations.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And that's really interesting how you bring up the different environments. I haven't even thought about that, how some areas bedroom, I mean, the word bedroom is not even a real thing for some areas, which is really a great point. But moving on, for some children you photographed, as you mentioned, in areas they slept, it looks somewhat sometimes unstable or unsafe conditions. Do you believe this impacted their overall emotional or mental health?
I think that's quite difficult to say because I do
Right.
think there's something where, as a kid, you're born into that experience. So everything is normal for you.
Hmm.
So it might, to our eyes seeing it, you might be slightly horrified at the kind of the conditions or the lack. But if that's all you've ever known,
Right.
um, I don't know how much that things. I think it's more to do with can be from nutrition to kind of lack of access to education. Um, I think those are also kind of important factors for kind of how the children are, and maybe how they suffer from those things.
Yeah, so more of a perception type of thing. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And sleep hygiene varies across cultures. So in different areas, it'd be things like screen time, routines, and shared beds. Did you see any sleep practices that were consistent throughout cultures and any that you thought were a little unusual or maybe surprising to you?
Ooh. Um, yeah, I mean, I suppose technology is something that's changed over the course of the project because I've now been doing the project for 20 years.
Mm,
And I think at the beginning, it was very unusual to see uh, kids with with iPhones, especially in poorer countries. But now, as the project's continued, it's becoming kind of almost ubiquitous in also kind of quite poor environments,
I see.
and so that's something that's changed. And I think that, I mean, I personally think that that kind of access to phones in your bedroom is dangerous for kids.
For sure. No, I agree.
I
Yeah.
know that. I mean, I know that. I mean, I don't know that much about it, but I kind of, if I can think back to myself as a kid, if I'd had a phone to watch stuff, it would have been.
Yeah.
I know I would have been addicted to it, and I know I would. It's something that I would want to do, but now I've got two boys, so it's kind of, who are 12 and 13. So I'm more on
Mm,
that kind of, being aware of kind of
yeah.
making sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah, I think it is really important to be aware of how technology can impact your sleep. But that is really cool to see how you can kind of see the trends of time moving along with the photos you're taking. So really interesting and super cool. Um, and do you feel where children sleep raised awareness about material inequality and
like or something about the unseen impact on children's emotional and psychological well-being. I know you might have touched a little bit upon that, but can you just maybe expand if possible?
Yeah, I mean, I think that everybody does, don't they? We all live in our own little bubbles of
Hmm.
kind of whether it's work, school, college, work, the people that you live with and that immediate surroundings. And I think you forget that there are so many different experiences that people are having, and whether that's a kind of kid who's living in a kind of a remote area in Nepal, up in the mountains, how different that experience is to a a girl in Tokyo, and kind of all of the how different their life is. Um, and I think it's kind of important to understand that people have these different experiences. And I think that I've been one thing that I go into situations, and nearly when you see people in their life, they're nearly always I nearly always, even if I'm a bit shocked about what a situation might be, I nearly always find that people are kind of kind and good. And
Hmm.
that's been a really nice element of the project.
Yeah, that is super interesting, and I'm glad to hear that. Um, yeah, I think this is a really cool project where you can get to see different cultures and kind of, yeah, I guess as you mentioned, step out of your bubble in a sense. So super cool. For my last question, for people listening to this podcast, which are usually a little bit younger, especially those who care about sleep and mental health, what's one thing you hope they take away from your work?
Oh, from my work. Yeah, I think sometimes it's to really appreciate how lucky we are. I
Hmm.
think we take it for granted having access to schools, having access to doctors, healthcare, and I think of course you can get wrapped up in all the little dramas and bad things and little things that are happening on your life, but sometimes to step back and kind of have an appreciation for what we have is good for us. I think is good for us all.
Yeah, I think that is really amazing takeaway. This is a great way to take a step back from the little stressors in our life and see the bigger picture. Wow, that's amazing. Well, those are all the questions I had today. I appreciate you coming on, and I'm sure everyone listening is just as appreciative. I'll make sure to link everything about you below, and thank you again.
Pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you for tuning into the REM Reward podcast. Before you go, we'd appreciate your support by subscribing, liking, and leaving your thoughts in the comments. Stay tuned for our next podcast, where we will be joined by a special guest speaker to explore even more about the fascinating world of sleep and psychology.